man who is the councillor for the Old Harbour South Division in the St. Catherine Municipal Corporation is the same man who will walk with the PNP standard into battle against Everald Warmington in southwest St. Catherine come general election day. His name, Dr. Kurt Alexander Waul, and he stops by Lead Story this evening to talk about what he says is the bad governance and misguided approach to governing that the Jamaica Labour Party has displayed, not just in his division, but in the constituency and in Jamaica broadly. And he comes here to articulate what he sees as wrong with how the Holness administration is running government and what he intends to do under a PNP government if he gets into office after the next general election. A lot to talk about with a good man on Lead Story on this Wednesday. Welcome to Lead Story on this Wednesday here on CVM TV. So, we invited Dr. Waul into the studio because the PNP was in his neck of the woods, though you can't call Old Harbour Woods these days. It's a totally different place. It has changed dramatically over the last 20 years. And the PNP, led by the opposition leader, Mark Golding, was in town to protest what they say is bad governance, corruption, maladministration, drawing attention to the appointment of Dennis Chung to the Chief Technical Director role at the FID, and pointing to what it says are failures under this Holness administration. In case you missed it, here is what went down in Old Harbour earlier on this Wednesday.
The opposition People's National Party, PNP, staged a peaceful protest in Old Harbour Square, St. Catherine, on Wednesday morning to express strong opposition to the appointment of Dennis Chung as Chief Technical Director at the Financial Investigations Division, FID. The demonstration began around 8 a.m. and marked the second public protest organized by the PNP on the matter. The first was held last Monday in front of the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service at the National Heroes Circle in downtown Kingston. PNP President Mark Golding reiterated the party's demand for Chung's removal, declaring that the opposition would not back down until the matter was addressed.
Somebody who has compromised himself by showing clear and manifest bias in the most important investigation that the FID is tasked to deliver on, which is the investigation of the allegations of illicit enrichment and corruption by the Prime Minister of Jamaica himself. This is why we have to take a strong stance against it.
Golding also noted that the controversy surrounding Chung's appointment is part of a broader pattern of concerns the PNP has raised about transparency and accountability in government. The party's General Secretary, Dr. Dayton Campbell, also joined in the call, affirming that whenever the general election is called, the Jamaica Labour Party will be ousted.
Talk about him now, make nobody force him to call no election or him not ready to call no election. Mr. Prime Minister, you can run, but you can't hide. And when you call that election, them are going to get a beating. Them must get a beating.
So far, the government has labeled the opposition's protest as manufactured rage, calling it vulgar and inappropriate. We discuss on Lead Story.
Welcome back to the Lead Story main set. So that's what happened in Old Harbour on this Wednesday. Dr. Waul is with me. Good evening, sir. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, George. Thank you for having me. Good evening also.
Good. All right. So you have tasted some success already. You knocked off one target, which was to get into the St. Catherine Municipal Corporation. You've been there since February 2024 last year, representing Old Harbour South. You previously raised, well, not even raised concern. You lashed out at what you felt was victimization against yourself in Old Harbour South, because you said that Spark and Reach haven't sparked in your division, haven't reached your division, and you were concerned whether or not you were being politically victimized by the big man holding the reins down in Southwest St. Catherine, Everald Warmington. That was December last year. Has anything changed on that front?
No, and I think it's victimization, yes, but it's also corruption. Let me give you the chain of events that occurred. So when the Spark program was launched, right, it should have started with some consultations, right?
Yes.
By the Constituency Development Fund. I was not invited to that, right? I only passed by
Other
there.
councillors were invited?
Everyone else was invited except me. I did not get an email. So I said, all right, let me wait and see, because the Spark program has a website. I waited to look at what roads were listed. When I went on the website, only 4 roads were listed, and none of them included Waul Harbour South. So I said, all right, let me call the Member of Parliament and inquire. So I called him, and I said, sir, why aren't there any roads for Waul Harbour South, and why was I not invited to the consultations? He started telling me all sorts of foolishness, or roads in Waul Harbour South were previously fixed, and he did not have them on his agenda right now. But as you know, Waul Harbour South is a coastal community. We get more rainfall than all the other areas. So whatever roads he may have fixed, no one can, when you come down there, you cannot tell. All of them are in a deplorable state. So anyway, after I called him and he told me that, I said, let me go and visit him. So I went there and I looked in his eyes and I said, Mr. Warmington, why are there no roads for Waul Harbour South, and why was I not invited? He told me that I should have heard this thing by the media. I should have heard by town crier media. But I said that's not appropriate. Being a sitting councillor, I should have gotten a letter or email or something. Anyway, I walked out and I said, let me take it another step. So I called the Minister of Works, right? He said that I should send him some text messages, which I did. I said, sir, I was not invited to the consultations, and ultimately I did not get one road for Waul Harbour South. He said that he could not help me. So I said, okay then. So I waited and I saw where the Minister of Works was coming to a meeting in Spanish Town at the Chamber of Commerce. So I went there and I waited until the cameras were on, and I stood up and I asked my question. I said, sir, I was not invited to consultations and there are no roads for Waul Harbour South. And because the cameras were rolling, he said, don't worry, man, we'll work out something. Call me back in 2 days. I called him back in exactly 2 days. And he was singing the same tune. There are no roads for you. I cannot do anything to help you. Lo and behold, I hear this man in Parliament giving his sectoral debate, that is Nestor Morgan, speaking of Warmington was his advisor and his friend, and he was just, so happy about Warmington. I'm saying, how is this man your advisor when this man was unceremoniously removed from the Ministry of Works after he made the utterances that he would not allow me to spend taxpayers' dollars?
Yes. But is it your understanding, though, Dr. Waul, that perhaps in this phase of Spark, which is a big project, the biggest we've ever embarked on in the history of this country, that perhaps Old Harbour South's roads are not on this initial list, but somewhere down the line? Has that been communicated to you in any way?
No. And what I see happening is corrupt. Because when I took the minister to task, when I saw him at the Chamber of Commerce meeting, he had it in mind that there were 7 roads listed. He had that in his file, yes. 7 roads.
Yes.
But if you look at the website, there are only 4 roads.
Yes.
So why is it that if you
One
have...
of them being Martin Lane.
Yes.
Yes.
Why is it that you have 7 roads which you are privileged to look on, but the public can only see the 4 roads that the Member of Parliament is saying that he's going to fix? Why are you hiding 3 more roads, and why wasn't 10 roads selected, which you had the opportunity to do?
Yeah. So you would be. I understand your well, not even frustration, your anger, because you've been preaching this message since last year, and you said nothing has changed. What if you were told at this point that, look, Councillor Waul, relax for a moment, Doc, because the roads that are to come in Old Harbour South just aren't on this phase, but next phase it will come? Would you be satisfied with that? No, at least some official communication.
But who would have recommended those roads? I was not invited to the consultation.
Because who would have told them which of your roads are the worst to fix?
Exactly.
Because it's a council's responsibility.
Exactly.
Just before we go to the break, just want to get something clear. Is it your understanding that councillors who were invited to those consultations were invited by a direct message, whether a text message or a direct email, and then you were expected to hear by a town crier? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yes.
That doesn't sound good at all. Let's take the break here on Lead Story. This is CVM TV. Back with more after these.
In a world where innovation meets tradition, agriculture.
Every dream conquered is another dream gained. I land and I fly again like a jet plane. Headed straight in your direction, 'cause I'm wiser.
Eat and live. You don't want to miss it. This is Farming Forward.
What's up, racing fans? Tune into CVM to see all of the live action from Rally X.
One race left to go today.
On Lead Story here on CVM TV. I have the man who's the candidate in waiting in Southwest St. Catherine for the People's National Party. He already has representational responsibilities for the people in Old Harbour South. He sits in the St. Catherine Municipal Corporation as councillor. He's been a medical doctor for about 24 years now, even though he's a young man still, under 50, 46 thereabouts, Dr. Waul. And he's from a family who has served St. Catherine, Southern St. Catherine very well. His father, Carlos, a former councillor in the 1990s. Dr. Waul, you joined that PNP protest in your stomping ground, Old Harbour today. Well, Old Harbour Bay, you're Old Harbour Bay man, and you came up the road to Old Harbour, the short trip for that protest. What message were you and the comrade leader sending to Jamaicans about the administration today?
Well, specifically, we were speaking about the appointment of Dennis Chung to the FID. But in general, we were talking about corruption that we think is rife throughout the Jamaica.
And the examples of that would be what?
Well, we could go all the way back to when Royal Reid was basically catapulted to the Senate and then catapulted to the Ministry of Education. And then this gentleman served, I think, for only 2 years. And during that time, he had to be removed from the Ministry of Education because he was accused of misappropriating more than $100 million in funds in a short period of time, right? And then you could go on to the Petrojam scandals and to many other things in terms of how the government was handling the Constitution, in terms of wanting to have extended SOEs and zones of special operations. And even though they were told that what they were doing was unconstitutional, they did not relent.
But let me ask you this, as a man of service and a man from a family of service, which is why I mentioned your family's history. And your mother was an educator of repute in that part of St. Catherine. You, as a man who, as a medical doctor, you see people of all stripes. People know that you are a member of the PNP and a man who serves the PNP, but they have no misgivings about coming to Dr. Waul for treatment, even if they're a laborer, because they know that you're a professional. So I'm asking, if a professional like Chung offers up an opinion in his capacity as a public commentator, and then applies for and is granted the privilege of serving in an official office, I'm trying to understand from you where the corruption is in that, in your own words.
Well, I have no doubt that Dennis Chung may be an excellent accountant, right? But I do not know where his investigative abilities come from, you understand? And furthermore, I know that you are an avid footballer, but I think you like racehorse more.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
you know this, yes?
Yeah, just imagine if you were a bookie and, you know, there was a horse and he had odds of winning of 100 to 1, and that horse went on to win the race, and somebody bet a lot of money on that horse. And you as a bookie, you would be thinking, you know, this horse probably won a lot of money, and you wanted to know whether or not, you know, this horse should really benefit from the money and the payout. And you'd be thinking that, yes, the horse should be tested, right, by someone. That person who is doing the test may be very competent in doing the test. But if you heard that the person who was going to pull blood from that horse to test it was the friend of the trainer of the horse, you'd be very apprehensive. You know, you'd raise a lot of questions.
I see what you mean.
Right. So that's it really. We have no doubt that Dennis may be a good accountant, but we have two issues. The issue is that he's biased, right, because he has basically litigated the Prime Minister's case.
On the back of one opinion, though, Dr. Waul?
Well, he said...
As a public commentator, it wasn't as if he made a post on Twitter. It wasn't as if he put something on his Instagram
well,
page. He was asked a direct question.
They asked him that, but I'm certain if they asked him more questions, he may have to continue on the same path. So, you know, so I'm saying that, you know, he has two things going against him. He's biased, and we have no doubt that he's a good accountant. He's a man that I don't know him personally, but I've seen him on your show all the while. I've seen him on Nationwide. I've heard him speak on various talk shows. I think he's very poised, and he looks competent, but I think he's unsatisfactory for this job. You know, his appointment is inappropriate based on the fact that he's biased and he does not have all the qualifications necessary for the post.
Hear me now. You and Southwest St. Catherine, you've run this race already. Eval Warmington bested you on that occasion. You're the former comrade in the position you hold now, Comrade Mears of blessed memory. Tried and he also failed. And if we look at the history, Southwest St. Catherine first came into play as a constituency in 1976. The late, many say great, Roddy Lawson of Thetford Farm fame, he won it in 76, won it in, well, Warmington won it in 80, and of course 83, no contest by the PNP. Lawson took it back, put 2 more terms on it. Jennifer Edwards won it in 97. But since 2002, it's been Warmington territory, and he keeps winning with big majorities. The people love him. There are a lot of people who love him despite his nature. How do you get past one of the most formidable politicians still operating in Jamaica?
Right. So, yes, that's a good question. If you look back in 2020, we lost by 5,000 votes in the 2020 general election, right? Fast forward to 2024, we lost by a cumulative margin of 1,000 in the last local government election, which is a year and 4 months ago, right? So you can see that we took off a significant chunk of the margin of defeat over a 3-year period. And if we should continue on that same trajectory, you know, we should have overcome that 1,000 vote margin by now. And the period from February 2024 to now is a different period than which followed, right? Because I am now the sitting councillor. I have resources available to me, right? We are able to do much more for the people in the community. And, you know, we basically, we wield more power and authority. And I think based off of that, we have more influence. So, you know, we should have overcome that 1,000 vote margin that separated us in the last local government election.
Explain this to me, how this comes into play, because as we spoke about Old Harbour being different, certainly the whole broad Old Harbour area certainly not what it was when you were attending Marley Primary School and when I came after.
Definitely.
Totally different. What was fields of mango is now houses. Yeah?
Right.
So with the new residents coming into Old Harbour by their hundreds over time, and the elections previously having a distinct local nature to it. What I mean is that the number of people didn't change. The communities were the same, same people, same families, so forth, choosing their representative. Now you have a lot of new people who are looking at performance. Has Everald Warmington done enough, you believe, to still be formidable, despite the number of new residents who would have come to Old Harbour in that space and would have added themselves to the voters list to vote in that constituency?
No, he has not. He has not done anything for those people who have come into the constituency. Right? And I think that may be a reason why he will be voted out in the next general elections, right? Because if you look at a town like Old Harbour, I think many people who come there to live, they envisioned coming to a community where they could do everything there. They could live there, they could shop there, they could probably go to the beach, go and visit the rivers in the mountains. And all those things are available in Southwest St. Catherine, right? But, they have not been developed, right, to benefit the people who have come there. If you know more than you know as much as I do, Old Harbour Town is the same it has been for probably the last 150 years in terms of the infrastructure. You understand? It's the same one road through and the same couple offshoot roads. You understand? Nothing has been done to allow the businesses in Southwest St. Catherine to develop and to allow the people who have come to live there to benefit from their community.
Let me take a break and you pick up from that. This is Lead Story speaking with Councillor for the Old Harbour South Division, the candidate in waiting in Southwest St. Catherine for the People's National Party, Dr. Kurt Alexander Waul.
Ghetto Misfits presents Leslie Last Why? One son with three fathers. The hilariously moving Father's Day stand-up comedy special with IT Ellis plus surprise guests. Leslie Last Why? One son with three fathers. Sunday, June 15, Courtney Auditorium. Gates open 5 p.m. Showtime 6:30 sharp. Get your tickets now at spuropen.com. Info line 876-542-4160. Laughter guaranteed.
A motivating factor for us was always that slogan, you need to enrich others, and from enriching everyone else, you will be enriched.
I usually joke that it's a high school experiment that went wrong.
Well, if they can't manage it, God help them.
He put me on some of his accounts, and the first thing he said is, "This is my money." I love that idea.
Everybody have a degree, all of us have.
He does have a degree. I say, boys, we're not going to put out, I'm going to fire. You never stop learning until you die that you die. And that is something that I'm using for myself, that just constantly trying to learn and become better each and every day.
Because we know you're not turning me a grandfather.
Maybe him don't know.
Oh gosh!
The Father's Day edition of The Cut is brought to you by NCB.
Welcome back, Talking Politics with Dr. Kurt Waul. He is a medical doctor. He is the PNP's candidate in waiting in Southwest St. Catherine, and he's the councillor for the Old Harbour South Division in the St. Catherine Municipal Corporation. Dr. Waul, if we look at the constituency and we know the areas, the spaces, I'm looking now at the areas that have traditionally been strong voting for PNP, strong voting for JLP. Macookspin has traditionally been a Labourite area.
It was cut off.
Yes. High House. High House is, nobody claims dominance there among the Indians who populated High House. Come down to Nightingale Grove, which has traditionally been stronger with the Labourites. Island Farm is usually a PNP enclave. Spring Village, the Labourites edge it. They come now to Churchpen now. Now Churchpen is where the PNP has had the biggest problem because the pockets of PNP supporters in Churchpen are insignificant when you weigh them against the Labourite. Gordonwood is Labourite, the housing scheme is Labourite, Herring Hill Lane is Labourite, Martin Lane is where the PNP has its strongest support. Sharper Lane is a Labourite area. Vietnam Lane, I think Vietnam Lane is PNP, Sweets Up Lane, Orange Lane as we go, Wellside Lane as we go down to Marley Mount.
Yes.
Now, those are the areas you need to convince the people in to say, I am the one. What has work been like in those areas?
Well, you know, it has been tough working the Churchpen area for certain, you know, because as you said before, you know, I think over previous elections, our biggest loss margins have been in those communities, right? But you know, thankfully now I live in Churchpen division.
You know?
Right? I live in Spring Village. Right? And you know, we have been engaging these people over after the last election cycle, right? I've tried to do all I can for them. You know, I try whenever times they have problems, you know, I intervene, whether they have, you know, a death in the family, even if they have a birthday party, anything at all, if they have a child or somebody who is in need of some form of scholarship or help, I try and intervene.
And you employ youth from the community, I know that as well.
Right,
yes.
Definitely. Right, we have a school that we have adopted in the Nightingale Grove area, a preschool.
Yes.
And, you know, we assist them in any way we can, right? If you look at the Spring Village football team, we assist them. Even marching bands in Spring Village.
Which is very popular in Spring Village.
We have assisted them with equipment from time to time. And, you know, we engage the people in Churchpen a lot. As you know, we have no resources to help them other than from just going around and trying to do the best you can do as a caretaker. We have no resources to fix.
You don't have state resources. Right. But my time is up. So you're saying that you've lived in the community.
Right.
You've employed people in the community. You've done the outreach. You've adopted schools. You've supported sport and entertainment.
Right.
And the work you believe will be sufficient to take you home.
Yes.
Hear you on that. Well, Dr. Waul, I wish you all the best and Godspeed.
Yeah, man.
Dr. Kurt Waul, don't move yet. He's the